it's going to be unlike any other type of mission. It's going to be unlike any other type of human venture because humans are creatures of planet Earth. Even explorers that were going to to new countries and new territory, the laws of gravity are the same. The oxygen in the air is the same. So that's going to be very different. It's going to be a very different challenge. And the law and the legal system is only a part of the rules that are going to emerge, a very small part, actually, of the rules that are going to emerge to govern this type of long duration space flight. What's going to happen when we get there? Are we going to stay at these planets? Are we going to move back? How's that going to work? We're talking about a significant amount of time here. So the next question is, well, what happens if somebody does something wrong on these flights? How do we punish them? How do we manage that environment in an area where resources are really, really, scarce? So, law is one aspect of it, but there are so many different aspects that need to be sorted out. But I think what your question does point to is that law mustn't be forgotten about. And I think
Exactly.
that's where that's the strength of the question that you've asked, because what we're saying here is that, look, humans are part of the equation. How humans behave are part of the equation. So when people are planning missions, when mission planners are sitting there thinking about technology for, life support, it's just as important to think about actually supporting humans' mental health and supporting humans' order within the mission. So a huge amount of questions to ask, huge amount of questions to answer, and I'll be really interested to see how they develop.
But an amazing way how you started the answer by giving the COVID example. And this is just going to make everyone connect well with the question.
I think so. I think we have to think that it's not about, big starships, and it's going to be very small scale. People are going to be confined, and that's going to take a significant toll on humans' mental health. Confinement, lack of privacy, being with the same people for a protracted period of time. Even the closest of friends struggle with that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all emerges.
Thank you so much. So, moving forward, this is one of my favorite questions. So, can artificial intelligence make legally binding decisions during space missions? And who's liable if something goes wrong?
Well, that's a question that's not just germane to space activity, I think, but it's really developing on the planet as well. And there's a whole range of questions about decision-making systems and systems that make decisions that humans should make. One of the interesting things that we're seeing is there's a lot of what we say automation is happening already in space. There's a lot of automation, but that's different from autonomy. Autonomy is making decisions in a very different, very independent way. So I think that I wouldn't even begin to start answering the questions because, again, we don't know what the legal framework within space missions are going to look like. We're going to think about fault. Well, how is a decision-making system gonna deal with that? We have problems with that on Earth with self-driving cars. We already can see some of the difficulties with that. So I think this is something that humans are going to grapple with throughout space explorations as the technology develops. And I think it's something we're going to become comfortable with, because humans do become comfortable with things and they do develop processes and procedures for dealing with this type of thing. Legal systems will deal with these type of things. But I think trying to answer it in abstract, virtually impossible, because I think there's going to be so many variables. There's going to be so many fact specific situations that are going to point towards an answer here.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so
So
the
I
last.
guess I didn't really answer your question there, because I don't think you can. I think it's very difficult to answer that question.
I understand that. And it's just a very like open-ended question, I would say. So there
For
are
sure.
hundreds of questions which pile up with this. It's okay. Thank you so much, Professor. So the last question is, what role should ethics play in shaping future space law, especially as we explore life, resources, and AI beyond Earth?
I think that is, again, a really interesting question. I'm going to change the word ethics in my answer, if you don't mind. I'm going to change it to values. What role should values play in shaping future? And I think they're fundamental because I think what's happened over the history of space exploration, we've become so interested in the how that we're forgetting the why. We've been so interested in how do we do it? How do we get up there? How do we make this? The why is very important. Why are we doing this? What are we trying to do? And I think if you ask a number of different people, you get a number of different answers. Are we looking at because we're explorers? Well, actually, there's a great deal of evidence to say that we're not explorers and that humans aren't natural, aren't natural explorers, and that there's certainly a good deal of anthropology that needs to be talked about in that respect. What about resources? Are we going there for additional resources? Well, again, it's a long way to go just to get money, isn't it? So I think there's got to be something more than that. Are we doing it because we're interested in finding the answer to the question of whether there's life out there, whether we are alone in the universe? And so I think there's a whole range of questions about values that we need to address and that hasn't really happened and that I think should happen, that we should start talking about why do we want to explore space? Why are we doing that when there's a lot of pressing social problems on Earth? These are questions, again, that are not new. They happened right at the start of the space race, right at the start of human space exploration. So I think, again, we're just starting as to think about what it is to be a spacefaring species. And I think there's a number of questions. So one of the questions I would say is, what do we do if we find life on Mars? Should we populate Mars or should we leave it? That's a values question. That's not a law question. That's a question that we as humans will have to make a decision. There will be some who suggest putting, well, why don't we just put a little zone around these Martian microbes if there'll be microbial life? And again, yes, that sounds perfectly reasonable, but humans have a history of putting zones around people when they want to use their land. So I think that poses problems as well. So all of what I'm leading up to, and I think one of all of the work that I've done in space and the work that I've done in law and policy circles, it all points to this big question of why are we doing this? What do we want at the end of it? And I think once we answer that question, that's the question I'm trying to find an answer to. What do we want at the end of it? And once we answer that question, then I think we'll be a lot closer to understanding the questions that you asked right at the start about legal systems, about agility, about dynamic frameworks, about accountability. I think it all falls back and it all rolls back to that.
It's actually got me to thinking now. I'm definitely going to try and find the answer to this question, although I
I,
can't
I
find 100%.
I think it's a very difficult one because I think there's no definite answer. You might have a very different answer to the one I have. Um, that somebody in a different country might have a different answer again. Somebody who's in business might have a different answer. Somebody in the military might have a different answer. So we've got a whole range of different perspectives that I think feed in and that I think we need to be careful of making generalizations, and again, I see it all the time, that the human urge to explore. I think that needs challenging. I think the planet B looking for a safety zone, should we really mess up Earth? I think that's something we need to challenge and think about. Do we really want to replicate the behaviors that have led to the environmental crisis that we're seeing on Earth? So I think there's a number of different questions that these values and from that the ethics and the morals that we can feed in. So again, great question to finish on, I think.
Thank you so much, Professor. This has been an incredibly insightful discussion. And thank you for sharing your knowledge and perspective with us. So, before we wrap up, is there any final message you'd like to share with the students or professionals who are passionate about the future of space law?
But it's open, that it's there to be claimed. It's not a closed shop. We're still a relatively small community in space law, and I would suggest anybody interested get involved. Where one of the things that's blown me away in my time doing space law is how friendly as a community it is, and how inclusive and how welcoming. I hope it is. I hope it still is. I hope I am. And what I think is it should be an optimistic, forward-looking and forward thinking community because this is such an exciting area to work in. It's such an exciting area to be involved in discussions about. And You know, never stop asking the questions, never stop thinking about the why, because from the why and from the what's the problems, we'll then start to get answers to the legal questions.
That's actually very true. Thank you once again. And to everyone
No problem.
watching, stay curious, stay informed, and keep looking up.
Thank you so much.
Mm.